Hey y'all, welcome back to another new video. Just some housekeeping things before we jump into the video today. If you are not already subscribed to this channel but you are watching this video, it would really mean a lot to me if you would hit the subscribe button. And also you should hit the bell notification button so you can know when I'm posting. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up because that will really help out the YouTube algorithm so that more people can find this channel. And if you're not already following me on TikTok, which I'm sure most of you found me from TikTok, so you probably are, but if you're not, you should definitely follow my TikTok account because I post new Harry Potter content there every single day. And I also have an Etsy shop that I sell Harry Potter related items on, so you should definitely check that out. I'll link it in the bio. Okay, without further ado, let's jump into the video. We are continuing on with the first Wizarding War series today. So if you are not caught up on all the previous parts, you should definitely go and binge watch those, or else this video is not going to make any sense. Okay. So we're getting into a part that I'm so excited for, and that is the prophecy of the fall of the Dark Lord. I'm so excited for this part. I've been waiting. Okay, so you guys remember the prophecy, the one that basically predicted that a young boy had been born that would lead to Voldemort's defeat. So that's the prophecy I'm talking about. So this is the late 1980 by now, and this is the worst part of the war. Lily and James are living in Godric's Hollow with Harry at this point, and they're in hiding there. And this is because Dumbledore has asked them to go into hiding. And I'll explain why in a second. But basically, he knew they were on Voldemort's sort of hit list and on his radar as hated enemies. And I'll talk about how Dumbledore knew that in a second. But also, it's important to realize that James had lent Dumbledore his invisibility cloak, which was like a family heirloom passed down because James is related to one of the three brothers, and it was basically passed down from father to son, which is why James has the one true invisibility cloak. But Dumbledore was curious about its properties, so James lent it to Dumbledore. So Dumbledore has the invisibility cloak, which honestly might have been like a fatal mistake, but anyways, Dumbledore has it. And so before they move to Godric's Hollow, Dumbledore meets with Sybil Trelawney at the Hogshead Inn. This is in Hogsmeade, and he's doing basically an interview for the divination position at Hogwarts, which was recently vacated. So they're just doing a job interview. But during the job interview, she enters into a trance, and it gives the famous prophecy, which foretold of a young wizard who would become Voldemort's equal and finish him for good. And the qualities that this boy would possess would be strength, power, courage, will, purity of heart, and a love so deep it would actually surpass even Dumbledore's love for his loved ones, basically. So that's all the qualities this person is going to have. He was also said to be born to parents in late July of 1980, and his parents were in the Order of the Phoenix, and his parents had 3 times defied Voldemort. So those are all the characteristics or the qualifications that this boy is going to have. And that leaves 2 possible candidates, and that's Harry Potter and Neville Longbottom. Okay, so Snape is present at the inn and overhears part of this conversation. He overhears part of the prophecy before he's kicked out by Aberforth Dumbledore. So Aberforth is Dumbledore's brother, and he's also a secret member of the Order of the Phoenix as well as the innkeeper. So he catches him eavesdropping, kicks him out. So Snape reports the information that he's heard to Voldemort because, remember, at this time Snape is still a Death Eater. And so Voldemort assumes it must be Harry, because it can be Harry or Neville. Voldemort just assumes it's Harry because Harry is a half-blood like himself. And I get questions all the time on why Harry's a half-blood, and so just really quick, I'll explain it. So blood status in the Harry Potter universe is not determined just by your 2 parents, your mom and dad. It's not just like, oh, my mom's a witch, my dad's a wizard, I'm a pureblood. It goes back several generations, and to be a full-blown pureblood, you need to have complete magical ancestry. I'm sure after several generations, maybe 3 or 4, you could call yourself a pureblood, and people would you'd probably get away with it. But those members of the Sacred 28, they have fully, purely magical lineage, or at least pretended they did, for ever. And so since Harry's literal grandparents are Muggles, he is a half-blood, and Neville Longbottom is a pureblood. The Longbottoms are part of the Sacred 28. And so since Harry and Voldemort are both half-bloods, Voldemort feels they're connected that way. I've also gotten some comments where people are like, how does Voldemort hate Muggleborns when he literally is a half-blood? How is he a pureblood supremacist when he's not even one? And I'm going to do a whole video on sort of the connection between the Harry Potter story and the story of the Holocaust, and JKR has said this herself, but basically it's sort of a reference to how like Hitler wanted the Aryan race when he literally had brown hair. So it's that sort of, she's kind of making a point about that, about how people just get these like ridiculous, absurd ideas about purity that sometimes they don't even meet, but they're just so obsessed with it. So Voldemort is obsessed with this idea of purity, even though by his own standards, he himself isn't even pure. So they're both half-bloods, and so Voldemort feels like that connects them, and therefore that's kind of how he decides it's Harry. And by deciding it's Harry, he marks Harry as his equal, which, remember, that's part of the prophecy. So if he decided it was Neville, it would have been Neville. And that's what I think, at least. And I actually, in my opinion, and I'd love to know what you guys think of this in the comment, feel like it was both Harry and Neville, because they were both necessary, especially at the end, for the defeat of Voldemort. So I kind of feel like the prophecy, it was really fulfilled by both of the boys, but by marking Harry as his equal, Harry becomes the chosen one. So Voldemort resolves that he's going to kill the infant at all costs. And basically Trelawney gets the job and moves into Hogwarts, and obviously she was like a seer, but Dumbledore also just like really wanted to make sure she was safe from Voldemort. So he's keeping her at Hogwarts to keep her safe and protect her. And Voldemort didn't know that Snape and Lily had been childhood friends. And I understand that people have very conflicting opinions of Snape, and I think that people are going to have all sorts of different opinions on why Snape makes the change that he does. Some people say like he only did it for Lily, and I have my own opinions about it, which I think I'm not going to share just because like everyone can think what they want. But based on this article that I'm reading from JKR, she described the love that Snape still held for Lily in this instance as like a very deep friendship love. I'm not denying that he was like romantically in love with her or maybe even obsessed with her. I'm not denying that, but I'm just saying like they were childhood friends, and so he loves her. And also, okay, so basically, yes, and Voldemort doesn't know this, doesn't know that they were childhood friends. And I think that Snape really still cared about her, and that this sort of kind of woke him up. And basically Snape went through a period of just like really introspection, and he realized that he didn't believe in the Death Eater's cause. And I know some people are going to think he only did it for Lily. I know some people are going to think he really had a change of heart. Whatever you think is your opinion, but either way, for whatever reason, he decides he doesn't want to be a Death Eater anymore. And so he becomes a double agent for the Order. So he tells Dumbledore about Voldemort's plans, and this is why Dumbledore has the family go into hiding. And he uses this thing, because some people were like, why is they just like living in Godric's Hollow, which is like a normal like a town, it's not that hard to find them. But actually they were hidden under this thing called the Fidelius charm, and this is like a very powerful hiding charm. And it's really like contingent on like one person knowing where they are and keeping it a secret. So that's going to be important in a second. But one point I want to make is that Snape had to literally beg Dumbledore to put them into hiding. Like, Dumbledore wasn't going to. I am not like a Dumbledore hater by any means, but I definitely think like towards the end of the series we see that Snape wasn't as bad as maybe we thought he was, and that Dumbledore maybe wasn't as good as we thought he was. Yeah, and so one thing is Snape literally had to beg Dumbledore to put the family into hiding. And so a little bit more about the Fidelius charm. And this charm is really complex and can keep someone hidden, but like I said, it requires a secret keeper. And so James and Lily wanted Sirius to be their secret keeper. But Sirius thought that this was too obvious. Since he was Harry's godfather, he thought they're going to suspect me right away. And so they actually choose Peter instead. And this was Sirius's idea, which I'm sure he like regrets as long as he lives. And remember, nobody suspects that Peter is a double agent. And basically they choose Peter because they're like, oh, he's an ordinary wizard. Like, Voldemort will never think he's our secret keeper. So just like really fatal, horrible mistakes. It's just like so sad that maybe if they just like picked someone different, this wouldn't have happened. And they didn't tell anyone about this switch. Even Dumbledore and Lupin thought that Sirius was their secret keeper. So it was really just like James, Lily, Peter, and Sirius that knew that Peter was the secret keeper. And so, of course, pretty much right away, within a week, Peter tells Voldemort their location, which then breaks the spell. So they're no longer in hiding. They think their house is still under this charm, but it's not. They're basically completely exposed. And so now, you know, Voldemort knows where they are. Okay, so around this time, Dumbledore realizes that James' cloak was actually the invisibility cloak, like the Deathly Hallow. But he doesn't return it to James, which really maybe could have had them escape, but he doesn't have his cloak. Okay, so now we're at October 31st, 1981. Obviously, this is the saddest, like one of the saddest parts of the story. So Voldemort goes to Godric's Hollow. The house is not hidden. He literally just walks right inside of it. They don't realize that their house is no longer hidden, so they're not really doing anything extra to try and keep anybody out. So Voldemort literally just like walks right in, and he instantly murders James. I got a comment that was really interesting on my YouTube channel saying, why wasn't Lily protected by love since James died for her? But I don't think James didn't die for her because he didn't love her. I think he didn't even have time to notice what was happening. I mean, he was like in the downstairs level of the home. Voldemort walks in, immediately kills him. Like, I don't even know if James really even knew what hit him. James was unarmed, didn't even have his wand, had no chance to defend himself, probably didn't even know what was happening. He was like dead before he even knew he was gonna die. And so then Voldemort walks upstairs where Lily is up there with Harry, and he basically offers Lily a chance to live if she will move away from her crib. And so basically Snape had basically begged Voldemort to spare Lily. I don't know if he told, well, I don't think he told Voldemort that it was like because he loved her. I think he probably tried to like manipulate it a little more, maybe saying like she was a really powerful witch, she could be useful to the cause. Because I think if he gave away that he loved her, like Voldemort would have suspected that he was a double agent maybe. And so he asked Voldemort to spare Lily, which personally, and I'm not like a full-blown Snape hater, and I'm not like a full-blown Snape like apologist, like I know there's like really divided, but this is one of the things that like really like bothers me about Snape, is that he was like, screw James and Harry. Like, that's just not right in my opinion. I mean, I get it, like James and him didn't like each other, but like still. So anyways, so Voldemort, you know, thought of sparing Lily as a thank you to Snape for being so loyal, which obviously Snape isn't actually loyal, but he's really good at pretending to be. And he thinks Snape is a really faithful servant, and Snape is really good at blocking out the mind reading, so Voldemort, you know, doesn't know all his thoughts. And so he thinks of sparing Lily, but just decides, I'm gonna kill her anyways, after she basically like resisted a few times from coming over to his side. But Lily refuses to step away from the crib. Therefore, she basically sacrifices her life for Harry. And so this loving sacrifice gives Harry a very ancient and powerful protection. And it was a very powerful counter curse, rooted in the power of love. And so this counter curse that envelopes Harry in this moment causes the killing curse to rebound off of Harry and hit Voldemort instead. And this makes Harry a Horcrux, even though Voldemort didn't realize it had happened. And this part is complicated. I recently posted a TikTok about all the kills for the Horcrux, and people were like, oh, you forgot Lily and James were Harry. And I purposely didn't include them because I'm not really sure what the process of making an accidental Horcrux is. I really hope JKR eventually releases some sort of blog post about it. So basically, she's told us that there is more to making a Horcrux than just the murder. There's like other spells and stuff involved. It's a very planned out process. But she hasn't told us what the other steps between killing and it actually being a Horcrux are. You know, she hasn't told us what the spells are. There's lots of theories. One of the theories is even like cannibalism. There's lots of theories, and she hasn't told us the answer yet. And so then I'm sure when it's an accidental Horcrux, I mean, he did kill someone, but he didn't do those other spells and stuff. I don't know then exactly the process of making an accidental one. So I'm not really sure if the murders of Lily and James 100% correlated to Harry being a Horcrux. It's very possible, and it definitely does make sense. But I'm just not sure, so that's why I didn't include them, I guess. So I'm not really sure how a Horcrux can be made accidentally, since it's such a step-by-step process. And I've even heard some people say they don't even really think Harry counts as a Horcrux because of this very fact. So either way, a piece of Voldemort's soul, whether we're going to call it a Horcrux or not, is now inside of Harry by some unknown process. I also heard the fan theory that Snape and Voldemort had made an unbreakable vow, that Voldemort vowed to not kill Lily, and so because he broke that unbreakable vow, he had to die, because that's what happens if you break the unbreakable vow, which I thought was a really interesting theory, but I personally don't believe it, just because I don't think Voldemort would make a vow to not kill a Muggle-born just because one of his servants didn't want him to. I mean, he literally killed Snape. He obviously didn't care about him that much. And also, JKR is the one that wrote this part, saying that, like, it was because of the love spell, so I don't think she would have made it both ways. But I definitely think that was an interesting theory. So when he was destroyed, it destroyed his body and drained all his power, but he didn't die completely because his soul was in so many different pieces that, you know, the very purpose of the Horcruxes worked. He can't die. And And so that's why Voldemort still sort of like lives, just like a piece of his soul. And then having a piece of his soul in him also gives Harry some of Voldemort's different powers. So Harry wasn't born with the ability to speak Parseltongue. That came into him when a piece of Voldemort's soul came into him. And so that is actually where we're going to lay off for today. This was like my favorite part. This was like the video I was most excited to make in this series that I'm doing. So I really hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And I know I discussed some more like different fan theories and stuff, so I would love to know what you guys thought of those in the comments. Please don't hate me if my opinion on Snape is different than yours. I know it's like people really get heated about it. That's just like my opinion, and if yours is different, if you hate Snape, if you adore Snape, that is all fine with me. I think this is, you know, Harry Potter is just for fun. I don't necessarily care if people have different opinions here and there about it. So maybe don't, you know, maybe you should try to not care either, I guess, because it's really not that deep. Yes, so if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and until next time, bye y'all!